Aloha, everybody from Hawaii. This is Gabe Morales of Criminal Justice Solutions and Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians, our new channel. And so if you like what you've seen so far on our channel, please hit the like and subscribe button. We need subscribers and need to share that content. So we greatly appreciate our supporters, and we believe greatly in sharing the information about the criminal justice system. And so we always are looking for subject matter experts. If you're interested, please hit us up and we'll take a look at your proposal as far as being a subject matter on any criminal justice subject. And so today we have a guest who has over 20 years experience in law enforcement. He is from the California's Bay Area and has dealt with a lot of different situations. He's a certified California post instructor. That's peace officer standing training for you civilians. And so, a lot of people are asking for standardized training in law enforcement, a lot of criminal justice reform advocates. And California is already ahead of the game. Washington State, too, also has the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Center. Not all states have that. So it really varies. So yes, I do believe that there should be some standardized training without too much red tape. And I think our guest here today would agree on that. And so today he's going to discuss drones, which is a relatively new subject, new tool for law enforcement. And it's kind of like the Wild Wild West with drones, as you'll find out from him. And he will educate us about that. It gives me great pleasure today to introduce Mr. Bill Fogarty. Bill, how are you?
I'm doing great, brother. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
All right. Thank you for being here. And so, we talked together before in Bakersfield a few years ago, and even before that, we've communicated on a variety of criminal justice matters. And I know you are very knowledgeable. So I am a dinosaur, man. I just bought this new mic and trying to figure out how to work it and do this YouTube stuff and all that, Zoom and all that. I'm really in the learning curve. So I really appreciate you educating us on some of this new technology. And so let's first get into, why did you get into law enforcement?
Well, that's a great question, Gabe. And, I want to say, again, thank you for having me on the show. I really enjoy it. I encourage everyone to hit the like button as well. I started in law enforcement a long time ago, back in the 90s. And I got into law enforcement because I wanted to be able to give back to people and really solve people's problems. Because I found at an early age, I enjoyed solving problems and being forced to think creatively outside the box. Instead of just a, hey, check box, go to work in a factory, because that's not me. I can't sit in a cubicle all day long, or I couldn't sit in a cubicle all day long. And it became something that every single day was a challenge and made me think outside the box.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting field for a lot of our new officers, as well as criminal justice students maybe thinking about becoming an officer. There's a lot of different positions. People think street cop, they think correctional officer, watching, inmates all day. There are so many positions within the field. It's amazing, even within the police and corrections field. And there are other positions besides that. So, I urge you to, think about it. And some of your friends may be, it's peer pressure, maybe saying, hey, why do you want to do that? And there may be some people that don't speak to you anymore, but, those probably weren't really friends anyways. But tell us then, Bill, about drones. Educate us. What is this new technology and how is it being used by law enforcement?
Sure. I think what's really amazing to me is how much drones have progressed into public safety. And it's not just cops, it's firefighters, it's emergency managers, and it's dispatchers. There's a city that's really out there, Chula Vista Police Department, that started having dispatch response by drones. And so drones really are a force multiplier, or an ability to provide situational awareness to people responding to calls for service. And we started seeing them a long time ago. Drones were, of course, used by the bad guys and bad girls, dropping off packages inside prisons, inside jails, out in the fields. It's sort of morphed from there to identifying drones as what could be used. Everyone thinks of the military, which is this huge drone that's overhead, Global Hawk. That's not what drones are in public safety. A vast majority of drones in public safety, whether or not it's fire or police department, they are smaller four propeller items with a camera, microphone. Some of them are being hooked up with FLIR, so you can get forward-looking infrared, which is great for situational awareness, hazardous materials. Some of them actually can do mapping. There's a couple of great products out there by Skydio and Brink drones that allow you to break glass and drop off packages. We also, here in San Mateo County, outfitted one of our drones to drop life jacket to people out who have been swept out to sea. And, I think that that's one of the things about drones I want to get the message out there is, drones can be used for multiple different responses. It takes a different type of drone depending on what response you have. I think that's one of the problems everyone has is you really need 4 or 5 different products, and each product costs a different amount of money. And yet each product is uniquely suited. And this goes back to what you just said about, when you work in law enforcement, you don't just push around a patrol car, or you don't just, you're not working with inmates all day long. There's a multitude of jobs that are out there, and drones are very similar. We have a couple of really interesting ideas that are out there, dropping off cell phones to barricaded subjects, so that way you can communicate to them when they don't necessarily want to communicate. You have drones that are now breaking glass to allow for disbursement of chemical agents inside a house. You have drones that are dropping off life jackets. They're actually seeing what kind of gas is leaking. If you're going to a hazardous materials spill, you want to be able to identify it. You also want to know which way you're standing is downwind, not upwind. That's always important because you want to make sure you're staying in the right location. I think that really drones are the way of the future when we look at de-escalation and we look at a response and we look at potentially dangerous situations. It's a lot easier for us to throw a drone up that costs, $300-400 than throwing an officer in the way of somebody who's wanting to commit some sort of harm to themselves or other people. And the drone now allows you to hear, see, speak. There's even some drones that smell and refer back to people what it is that's going on before an officer shows up, because it tends to be that we keep putting officers in really bad situations where they don't know what's going on. And with this, it provides them with a lot of insight. And I want to emphasize not just cops, but also firefighters, emergency managers, and dispatchers. I mean, really, this is a tool. And when you look at public safety, the more tools you can add to your toolkit, the better off you're going to be.
I agree. And so you mentioned a little bit about bad guys. We had a situation here just yesterday. I was reading about on Facebook that there were some concerned parents that a drone was flying over some little girls, and that it was, the new peeping Tom of 2021, the way that this individual was looking at these little girls. They were pretty sure, it was not innocent, a flyover, the way he was hovering over them. And they were very concerned about it, and even thought about shooting down the drone, but then thought again about that and didn't want to get in trouble by local law enforcement for firing a weapon up in the air. So tell us, again, I know it's like the Wild Wild West out there. What kind of things are bad guys doing, and what can the public do about it?
That's a great question, Gabe. When I first started doing research on drones, one of the things I found that's really concerning is there's no expectation of privacy from a drone flying around your property or flying overhead. And it's hard to believe, but it's just like if you're out in the open, you're kind of fair game, unfortunately. And as long as the drone's not physically causing any harm, it creates an opportunity for people to do bad things like you're talking about. And it really is, there's no law that's being violated. As much as you feel like your privacy is being invaded, and it is, there's nothing saying you can't do that. And you don't really know what the drone is doing up there. And on top of that, the drone is actually someone's personal property. So theoretically, you could end up getting in a lot of trouble for destroying someone's personal property. Now, what you can do about it is there's actually a couple of different solutions. There are a couple of different drone defense companies that are out there that actually can work together. One is White Fox, who has a counter drone system that really identifies where the drone is coming from, triangulates on it, can tell you the make, model, the RF frequency, and where it's going back. And so it allows you to sort of track where that person is. The other thing is you have a couple of systems that are out there that are drone guns that you can actually use a gun to go ahead and down. It's a net gun that gets to shoot out a net and actually will take down the drone. But then you're actually in charge of someone else's personal property. And, some question about if you end up injuring that property, whether or not you become criminally liable for that. And there really is no understanding of what that does, or there's been no definition of it. And I think that's where our politicians need to step up to the plate and legislate, hey, these are the rules of engagement. And while, you may be flying in airspace, even if you're flying in unrestricted airspace, there needs to be some sort of privacy that's allowed for you, and you shouldn't have to worry about that.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot to be done yet in that area. Bill, I know you have a long, illustrious career. Can you think of any incidents, critical incidents that occurred, whether it be with drones or, in the past, that you still recall as kind of a lesson to be learned for some of our viewers?
Absolutely. For a little while, I was the director of Office of Emergency Services here in San Mateo County. And we had a couple of different vegetation fires that were out in the middle of nowhere. And we had to, it was after a couple lightning strikes, and we had to go ahead and get people on the ground to go ahead and identify whether or not there's a fire going on or not. And this is one of those situations where, again, drones come in really handy by, you could fly a drone overhead, you can figure out exactly where it is. There's even a couple ideas of dropping water from the drones as well, like an attack helicopter. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for fires, especially with lightning strikes, because those happen usually out in the middle of nowhere. No one even knows what's going on. That's how fires begin. And here in California, it seems like we have wildfire season almost year round now. The other thing that we're seeing more and more is when you're thinking about doing a warrant service at a person's house or at a business or something, using drones overhead to provide situational awareness to people. And I can tell you, you and I got to know each other when I was working gangs. I know of at least one incident where there were dogs deployed on the perimeter because they're afraid of the person running. And, if they had a drone overhead, it'd be a lot easier to track somebody and it'd be a lot easier to go ahead and make sure that there wasn't a violent confrontation, if there was one, to make sure that you could go ahead and track the person. And I think that, more and more, that's going to be the wave of the future. Is you're going to have a lot more drone operators who are law enforcement officers, or even private civilians who are going to be tracking people as they're going out. And, I don't want to go Skynet on people from Terminator, but, I do think we're getting to a point where you're going to start seeing a lot more automation to track getaway vehicles, stolen vehicles, crimes that people commit in banks, drive-by shootings. And then you're going to start seeing more and more of a drone response to be overhead and provide awareness, because almost all wars have been won by air superiority. So if you have a drone that's overhead, you're going to have something that's overhead that's going to be able to track it. And right now, I think the issue is battery life, because most drones don't last a long time. But I do think that that's going to be, as they get more and more able to go ahead and have batteries that are going to last longer or get more of a change out service, that's going to be the way of the future for responses.
Very good. Yeah, police helicopters have been around for a long time. And, that aerial view definitely helps in a lot of situations, I know, but it seems like drones can get lower and get faster, and you can put out a lot of different drones versus maybe only having one helicopter. We used to call them ghetto birds back in the day, flying over. But yeah, I can definitely see how they could be of great use to law enforcement. And so, Bill, tell us, what is 21 Clets? And there it is. There's your logo. And why did you start that?
That's a great question. 21 Clets stands for sort of the way I think, which is 21st century communications, law enforcement, emergency management, training solutions. Too often in public safety, and this is why I started the company, we train to one discipline. So if you're a cop, you train as a cop. If you're a firefighter, you train as a firefighter. If you're a dispatcher, you train as a dispatcher. And, now that we're in the 21st century and we have tools that are available to us that are cross-discipline, that go across all disciplines of public safety, it's time to start training together. And so I started developing classes where everyone can come together to go ahead and go to classes, so that way everyone knows what everyone else is going to do in a critical incident. So, our drone classes are open to firefighters, dispatchers, and correctional officers, and emergency managers. So that way, A, they know what can be done and what can't be done. B, they know what language is going to be used. And C, to really know how to practice the way people are going to play. I will tell you, we had an active shooter incident out here in San Jose, unfortunately, 2 days ago. And one of the things that happened was it was in a rail yard. And it would have been very easy to deploy a drone to get overhead. But then you have communication issues that are going to happen where a cop is going to say, I'm responding to the A, B, C, D side, or 1, 2, 3, 4 side. And the dispatcher that's listening may or may not know what that is. And so, the idea behind my company is to bring all these people together, bring together a diverse group of viewpoints for the class. So that way, when students are in the class, they understand that their viewpoints being represented. Too often, if you're a cop, you only think about the way you used to do things and you don't have any youngsters in there. We're happy to have a wide collection of instructors that is all disciplines, everything from correctional officers to dispatchers to records managers to correctional officers to retired people to people just starting off their service. And on top of that, it's not just people who live in the Bay Area, because I appreciate what you said about the Bay Area and how we are here in San Francisco and in California. But we need to take in consideration what other people have experiences with. Like Colorado, they had flights of drones that were flying overhead that spooked a lot of people, and we still don't know what the causes were of those a year or two ago. And getting that to have some perspective about, hey, what are drones and what are the advantages and disadvantages for using them in your community, and even raising some awareness of people who live there, including bringing up things on social media to let people know about what people have and what they don't have to make it more transparent. And, at the end of the day, the company is founded on the belief that the more viewpoints we have, the more perspective we can provide. And in the 21st century policing model that was released underneath President Obama, one of the things that came up with transparency and building trust with the community. And so a lot of my classes have had community input to help provide insight to our members in public safety who need to have a better understanding of the fact that it's a guardian mentality. It's not just a warrior, us versus them. There needs to be some protection, and there needs to be some ideas and awareness to what the community expects from us and what we can do to help support them as well.
Well, that sounds like some great training opportunities for people there. Now, they can Google in 21 CLETS, correct? Is that how it's spelled?
Correct. 21clets.com. And you can also visit our drone website. It's cletsuas.com. So we have two different websites. They can Google that and then go right to us. They can also find us on social media. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And I welcome anyone and everyone to go ahead and follow us as well.
Well, I viewed your website, and I'm glad to be a part of the team also. And you have some great subject matter experts and teach a lot of different classes. So yeah, please look that up. Not just if you're in the Bay Area, but if you want to take a vacation, hey, the end of the pandemic is some good airfare specials. If you want to go anywhere where they're putting on training, look that up. And yeah, that would be a great time. I usually do that, get training, and then do some R&R after my training wherever I travel. So I encourage people to do that and take advantage of Bill's great team there. And so,
Gabe,
yes,
just
sir.
one other thing I want to add. Because of the pandemic, we actually adjusted to online classes as well. So you don't even have to go anywhere anytime. You just have to be able to have a computer, a camera, and we can go ahead and get you online also.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's why one of the big reasons why I went to this format is everybody was doing things online. I was like, hey, I better get with the program, even though I know nothing about it. I better learn. So yeah, no, that's great. Sometimes you got to take the training to the people. I understand. And there also is situations where that person to person contact also helps with learning. So yeah, we got to make it happen. Got to get the training out there. We can't let anything stop us. That's for sure. Safety is utmost important. I firmly believe in good training. And so, Bill, as we come to the end here of this show, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. If you're a young teen today being approached by gangs, being pressured to join gangs, what kind of advice would you have for that young man or young woman today to try to avoid going that route?
Well, I think that's a great question. In my experience in gangs, nothing really has changed in sort of the last 40, 50 years with gangs. They recruit because people are looking for a family, and people are looking for somebody to go ahead and feel like they belong to a group. And I would say, look, I understand that need. I also have that need. And the way that I address it, and I encourage other people to address it, is look for outlets that are going to allow you to provide for having a family, having a group you hang out with, and looking at what the future is going to end up holding for you. Because too often when you're a teenager, all you're thinking about is the next 5 minutes. You're not even thinking about 10, 15 years down the line. And decisions that you make over and over again can end up impacting your life. And so what I'd say is very much like Back to the Future, for those of us who are old enough to remember it. Every moment of your life creates a different possible outcome for what your future is going to end up having. And, as someone who's getting recruited by a gang, it's tough. You got to be a soldier for yourself, number one. And soldier for yourself is you take care of yourself, because the people who are trying to approach you probably don't have your best interest long-term at heart. They have their best interest at heart. And, number two is not just be a soldier, but number two is be aware and be intelligent to figure out what the manipulations are that are going on, that you may or may not be getting used, and you may or may not be getting played. And part of that is you got to understand the ways of the game. And part of that is honestly reading your books, Gabe, and having an understanding of how gangs get formed and why they get formed, and really educating yourself as to how to stay away from that, and be solid in your conviction that you're going to end up thinking about your next 10, 15, 20 years of your life, because that's a long time.
Well, thank you for that. I've always said that education is probably one of the best prevention measures we can take to prevent people from joining gangs, and also keep yourself busy, sports, hobbies, that kind of thing. And for parents to keep on top of what their teens are doing, because if you don't keep them busy, keep their mind busy, keep them busy, the gangs will do that. And so we have, like I said, a lot of young officers, criminal justice students here that view our channel. If you're a brand new recruit straight out of the academy, the game has changed, as we know, in this political climate. What kind of advice would you have for that new recruit going out into the streets today?
Number one, never stop learning. Always read everything and anything you can to go out and talk to people. Too often, we end up talking using our phone, and we don't use that phone for the great tool it could be, which is doing research, education. My classes are one of the very first things. We have plenty of classes that will cover anything you could possibly need. Number two is follow what is going on in the media and be aware of the way that public safety is being portrayed, because that often drives the politicians to decide what they're going to end up doing. And that's the other part of this is educate yourself about what bills are going through your state legislature. We have one coming up here through California that is going to be debated about whether or not you have to be 25 years old or have a college degree in order to become a police officer or sheriff's deputy, and how that's going to end up impacting. And, I'm aware of it because I do my research and I stay up to date on my material. And, that's where I think a new officer should be doing as well. And I think the last part of it is go talk to the people like us. Go talk to the older folk who are around. I guess you can't say older, seasoned people.
Speak for yourself, Bill.
And find out what lessons they have. Too often, we don't ask the question why. We just go out and do stuff. Well, usually there's a why. There's a name attached to a rule or a policy or procedure. That name is usually the person who screwed it up in the first place. So go talk to that person and find out, hey, how'd you screw it up, man? What happened? And how do I make sure I don't do the same thing? And why did that happen in the first place? So, I think if you do those three things, I think that's a good way to go ahead and start your career and make sure you keep yourself out of trouble.
Thank you. That's good advice. Our good friend Joe Salazar there from San Francisco PD, he was on one of our segments, and he had brought up also that the biggest thing he sees as far as officer safety is officers looking down at their phone, not being aware of their surroundings. There is a lot of stuff on there. That phone can wait, unless it's your, old lady. Well, of course, we know you got to answer the wife. Everything else pretty much can wait, unless it's your boss calling you on the company phone, the agency phone. Then yeah, those things can probably wait. Don't get distracted because it doesn't take too long for a bad guy to sneak up on you. And so you had mentioned politics, and we know it's changing, seems like daily, especially in California and in Washington State and some of the more urban areas. If you were a politician today, knowing what you know about what's working and not working with the criminal justice system, what kind of policies or laws, what kind of changes would you make?
Well, I think that number one, we need to make sure that we understand that politicians are there to get votes. I don't think anyone should be thinking otherwise than that. That being said, I think that what our legislators need to do is create a balanced forum to allow for input from the community and from public safety, so that you are able to go ahead and see things from a long-term impact, not just a short-term fix. And so, I'll use an example. What do I want my legislatures to do? Bring everyone to the table before they start proposing rule changes, so that way they get everyone's input and honestly listen to that input, not just do lip service to it. This idea that we're not going to hire anybody in law enforcement until they're 25 years old or have a college education, well, you're really doing away with the vast number of people who learn from the city streets, where that has its own value in education, and that should not be dismissed at all. Because at the end of the day, the best cops I know are people who learned on the streets as well as people who learned in school. And, I think that for legislature, they should start thinking about, yes, I mean, in California, we're an extremely liberal society. There's no question about it. How do you balance out being liberal, being libertarian, and allowing people the freedoms that they want and they deserve, while also making sure to hold people accountable for their actions? And, thinking about the long-term benefits versus the short-term gain. And I'll use a perfect example here in Bay Area. So we have seen a large number of increases of people stealing packages off of people's front porches. And the reason they're doing it is because if they get caught, and that's a big if, they're going to get a ticket to appear in court at some day in the future, and it's a misdemeanor charge, and then that's it. And so, the idea that they're not really going to see any real discipline or penalty for doing it, well, of course, people are going to be doing it. And that's where there's no long-term ramification or thinking of, well, maybe if we have more than 5 of these, maybe this person should do some state time. Maybe they should get locked up for a little bit longer. We should be thinking about the long-term ramifications. And so part of the legislature is things like that, being aware of what's going to happen in the future, also being aware of the changing technology that's out there. I can't believe in this day and age that there's not a law and regulation that says you can't fly drones over people for the purposes of watching them as they're walking down the street, because we all know that creeps are going to be doing that. So why wouldn't you allow some sort of protection for those people? And, why wouldn't you also say, hey, look, if you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing with a drone, well, then you should be allowed to shoot it down or at least do something with it. Unfortunately, we haven't kept track with the times, and I don't think enough people have awareness as to what's allowed and what isn't allowed. And also, I think that we need to look at, for public safety and the FAA, if you're going to use a drone, there are rules that are in effect. The problem is there's nothing saying what's going to be done to legislate those rules or what kind of citations or punishment you're going to get for doing something wrong.
Right. As far as I know, you don't even need a license or anything to operate that, right? I mean, you may need a license to drive a car, but these people are out there driving, and they could be dangerous. I mean, just running into things or causing hazards where there could be some bad accidents happen. And so, yeah, thank you for educating us today on drones and law enforcement and gangs, Bill. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you again for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of yours, Gabe. I will tell you that I've always admired you and all the work that you do. And bravo to you for growing into the 21st century and going to podcasts and YouTube and everything else. Because, hey, brother, it's tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm almost a dinosaur myself now. I also want to say, hey, look, at the end of the day, you and I both share a very similar passion in educating people and helping people out. I put myself out there, and I know you do as well. If anyone has any questions, reach out to me. My social media is all over the place at 21 Clets, whether or not it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Hook up with me, ask me any questions you have. I will get back to you. My big thing in life is being able to give people that moment of the aha and help them get through their experiences to get out to the other side, because I've had enough bad experiences. I know enough other people have as well. I don't want to see anyone have to go through that. And if I can help you because you're at a quandary or a difficult process or place in your life, reach out to me and let me know. And the other thing is, hey, look, you want to talk to me about something? You want to pick my brain about drones? Hit me up. I'm more than happy to go ahead and answer any questions or put you in the right connection, because I don't know everything, but I know how to get to the right people, and I'll be more than happy to help you out with that as well.
Right on, brother. Okay, well, if you're ever out here in Hawaii on the Big Island, look me up. I'll give you the local boy tour, okay?
I appreciate that, brother.
All right. You take care.
Aloha, brother.
Okay, aloha.